Hello, everyone. So, the number 6 of 13 things mentally strong people don't do. They don't fear taking calculated risks. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Don't be too timid and squeamish about your action. All life is an experiment. The more experiments you make, the better." Okay, you can't get through life by not making mistakes. And so you make mistakes when you experiment, when you try different things. So often you have to take these risks. And so the key is to make sure that they're calculated, that you've thought about it, that you thought about everything that comes with that. So a lack of knowledge about how to calculate the risk is what leads to the increased fear. And so, in fearing risk is what leads to avoidance. So then you don't do anything. So you might ask, well, why do we avoid risk? Well, there's a lot of reasons that people avoid risk. Number one, because your emotions prevail over your logic. Instead of thinking about what could be, we focus on what if. Okay, so in that what if is the thing that will stop you. We base our decisions on emotion instead of logic. And by doing that, we incorrectly assume there's a direct correlation between our fear level and the risk level, and there isn't. Another reason is because we don't think about risk. We don't actually, when I say think about it, like you don't really think about it. And so to calculate risk, you have to predict the probability that the outcome of your behavior will result in either positive or negative consequences. And then you got to measure how big of an impact those consequences will have. So, because when you take risks, you are going to have probably some negative things, come about, but you may have some positive things. So you have to calculate, okay, what's the level? Is the positive here? I can do this. Like, I don't know, maybe you're running a business and you're thinking about doing something different in your business. Well, the risk is that, okay, well, I could spend this money and then not get anything. But see, the positive that you could spend that money, could still be looked at as a negative, but the positive would be that you could, earn 10 times what you spent, which then you would say, okay, well, the risk is a risk, but it would be worth it. So, risk starts with a thought process. Your thoughts about the risk will influence the way you feel, and ultimately it'll sway your behavior. So the problem with fearing risk is that you don't get to be extraordinary without taking calculated risks. I mean, like everybody who has been real successful in business or in anything in life has taken risks. Like if you talk to anyone who's been real successful, I will guarantee you that they told you that they took some risks and that they were afraid while they were doing it, but thinking about what could happen instead of what if is what made them go ahead and do it. I mean, if we only take risks that make us the most comfortable, then we're likely missing out on some great opportunities. Taking calculated risks often mean the difference between living a mediocre life and living an extraordinary life. And what do we say? No mediocre. We don't want a mediocre life. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't be satisfied with a mediocre life, but who is out here living life saying, you know what, I just want a mediocre life? Nobody. The only people who tell you that are people who are probably living a mediocre life and they're afraid to do anything outside of that, so they have just settled. Nobody goes around saying that. Another problem with fearing risk is that emotion interferes with making logical choices. So, if you are really emotional about everything, then your choice making is not going to be logical because you're going to be in your head all the time. Our fear meters, which, what we'll call these things that, regulate how fearful we are, they're not always reliable. They sometimes go off even when we're not in any actual danger. Like you're just scared of something like, like me, for instance, I will use me. I am afraid of driving on bridges. And so because of that, I just get so scared. Now, why? It's not based on logic. I've never seen anybody drive off the bridge, or I've never heard that anyone did that. but that is a illogical fear that I have. So it's important though to be aware of your emotions throughout your entire decision making process. You got to be aware of it. So one thing you can do is you calculate your risk, and by calculating your risk you can reduce that fear. So balance emotion with logic. The more emotional you feel, the less logical your thoughts will be. So pay attention to the thoughts you have about taking the risk, and make sure you're basing your decision on facts, not feelings. Someone said that to me years ago. And he said, you know what? You need to, when you're thinking about doing something different, you have to base your decision on facts, not feelings, because feelings change. The facts don't change. Feelings change, and I always remember that. Many of our major life decisions are based on complete irrationality. We incorrectly judge how much control we have over a situation. We overcompensate when safeguards are in place. We don't recognize the difference between skill and chance. We're influenced by our superstitious beliefs. We become easily deluded when we see a potentially large payoff. We grow comfortable with familiarity. Like if you take the same risk over and over again, you'll start perceiving it as risky. We place a lot of faith in other people's abilities to perceive risk accurately. Emotions can be contagious. Somebody fears something, they start telling, don't do that, and then you start, no, I don't do that, because someone said, no, don't do that. And we can be influenced by the media and how we perceive risk, because, if Facebook said it. Come on now. Minimize your risk and maximize your success. The level of risk you'll experience in a given situation is unique to you. So ask yourself the following questions to help you calculate your risk level. Okay, here's the question. What are the potential costs? What are the potential benefits? How will this help me achieve my goal? What are the alternatives? How good would it be if the best case scenario came true? What is the worst thing that could happen, and how could I reduce the risk that would occur? How bad would it be if the worst case scenario did come true? And how much would this decision matter in 5 years? Ask yourself those questions, and then resolve to make the best decision you can with the information you have. And that is all you can do. Start with the what if, base your decision on the information you have. So practice taking risks, like practice small risks until it's like you're ready to risk. I'm gonna tell you, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something I did.